All right, it's another one of these Homeric Rhapsody things. We're still in what's known as Book 6 to us of the Iliad. I don't have a lot of time for this one, so let's see what we can do. And thus, moving from the battlefield to that great gate of Troy, into the Scaean gate walked the prince, son of Priam, of the shining helm, Hector. He walked in, the gates were opened for him, and all the women and the old men and the children of Troy flocked around him, everyone who could not fight. And they asked him after husbands and sons and fathers, and said to him that they would give anything to know the status of this or that man who fought along the city walls or outside the gates. Hector, hearing so many names, had images come to mind of men with their jaws slashed open, falling into the dust, arms ripped from their sockets, holding their bowels in with hands that could no longer grasp anything, a sword or even the smallest of items. Blood flowing into the fields and forming chasms like little rivers. He saw all these things, each one with a face assigned and a name assigned to that face, a name being called out to him in this moment. And he said, "Pray to the gods, for they are the only ones who can help you now," and walked on. He knew that sorrow's cup was soon to be drained for many of these poor women and children and old men. Thus Hector made his way into the city, heart heavy with grief and with shock and with that guilt of the soldier who is not fighting among his men, not lending them that courage and valor which might have otherwise saved them from a dark doom. And his feet carried him faster and faster, remembering that his place was out on the field, out leading those men, and bringing forth all the men he could back to the city safely. He made for his house, hoping to find his wife Andromache. But he could not. He realized that he must first go to the temple. It was his duty. He spoke to the people outside the temple walls, and he said, "Where is my lady mother? I must find her. We have important business." And they told him to go and search within one of the rooms dedicated to the goddess Athena. He went, and he joined his lady mother, Hecate, who was praying at the foot of the statue of the gray-eyed one, who seemed to be turning away, though, of course, that statue always was in the same pose. Hector said to her, "Lady Mother, we must act if we are to save the city of Troy. By force of arms alone it cannot be saved. We must ask the gods for help." And Hecuba said, seeing her son, tears in her eyes, she could not believe that she was holding him in her arms once again, not after a day like this, even one so brave as shining Hector. She feared for his life every moment, and had only just then been praying for him. She said, forgetting herself, forgetting the urgent words of her son, "Hector, you must be weary from the battlefield. Let me bring you wine. Let us share in that blood of the grape, and perhaps bring back your strength, give you some rest from that never-ceasing conflict. We've been seeing it from the walls. It is more terrible than I can ever remember. And Hector said to her, clipped and fast, Mother, do not ask me to pour out wine or to drink it. I cannot be drinking wine now, as all my men are being slaughtered without me. Nor can I pour out a sacrifice to Almighty Zeus with these blood-stained, filthy hands. No, we must make sacrifice to the goddess Athena. You must do it. You, unstained, who is so pious and who is praying day and night at Athena's temple. Take one of the most lovely of your robes, the one you prize most out of all, and bring that to the foot of the goddess. Beg her to have pity on Troy, to lend her aid, to make it so that she does not fall, at least not this day. And so, having made such a request, Hector left the room, giving a hug to his mother, not realizing that this would be the final time he saw her behind Troy's walls, the final time that he would hug her and have that motherly love shining upon him. Hector's mother did not skip a beat. She took her serving maidens, and they all went back to her chambers to seek out that robe. She went through piles and piles of them, and finally took one that Alexandros had brought back when he took Helen and all her treasure with her. One of the finest robes she had ever seen, made by the hands of Spartans. And she brought that to the foot of that Trito-born goddess, bringing her other daughter Cassandra with her, and the wife of Antenor, that wife who was the priestess of Athena, and all of them together cleansed their hands in the great mixing bowl filled with holy water, cleansing water, and they poured out sacrifices of wine to Athena, and laid out in perfect symmetry that beautiful robe at the feet of the goddess, and looked up at the unsmiling statue, which still, was it still looking away? And they said, Goddess, please bring your cunning and your shining light onto the battlefield to be a guide for Trojans in this dark time. We ask not that Troy live forever, but at least that it survives this day, this horrible day of fighting, and this horrible siege of Achaeans. Do not let our God-built city put forth, and having had walls built by your honored brothers and uncle Poseidon and Apollo, do not allow this city to fall. Thus did they pray, and made sacrifice to Athena, and knelt at her feet. And they did not see, as they all sat prostrate, that the statue turned even farther away. All right. Added like a supernatural element there. I don't know how much I like that, but it's kind of interesting. In the story, Athena, we already know, obviously, that Athena is like very much on the side of the Achaeans. And so it's an interesting moment where the people don't understand which god they should be praying to. Because the Trojans obviously would do better to pray to Aphrodite or to Artemis or one of the gods who's like favoring them. But they don't. They pray to Athena, not realizing that she's like the biggest opponent of Troy. And it's an instance where their prayers go unanswered. And it says in the Iliad, like Homer says, like, yeah, she refuses. Like that they don't realize it, but that Athena is like not going to do that. And so I added this kind of like, it's something that doesn't really happen that almost ever in the Iliad, where it's like a character's thoughts, or like experiential moments. There's more like action oriented moments, or like external moments that it's telling you, but not where it's like some kind of like um thing where it's like, oh, did they notice that the statue was like turning or something. Like that doesn't necessarily happen, but I thought it was kind of interesting. um the idea that the statue is representing Athena not wanting to grant their prayers, rather than just saying she did, she would not do it. um Other stuff, I couldn't remember Antenor's wife's name, who's the one of the, she's like the priestess of Athena, if I recall correctly. And I should remember it because she was in Post Homerica with a pretty big role. I think it's Theano, now that I'm thinking about it. She has like a really interesting moment when all the women of Troy rise up after the Amazons come. This is in Post Homerica, after the Iliad. And they're like inspired to fight, and then Theano has to talk them down, like, no, the Amazons actually trained their whole lives for this. Like, you wouldn't be able to fight the same way they do. um, and I spent a lot of time narrating that story and publishing the Kindle edition and illustrating it, so I should have remembered her name. But we got by all right. The other thing, oh, I made Hector go to Andromache's house too soon. So then I kind of like just rolled past it and had him like go to the temple instead. Um, the What else? The part where Hector's mother tells him to drink wine, and that he doesn't want to have his senses dulled or whatever. He says he doesn't want wine to dull his senses. Like, he doesn't want, in the regular Iliad that we know, he says he doesn't want to have his senses dulled by wine, and he doesn't want to sacrifice to Zeus with filthy hands, or to somebody. I don't know if he says Zeus or not, to somebody. But in mine, I say that I added this like story concept where he's like feels guilty about being off the battlefield, because it is kind of weird that the greatest fighter of Troy would leave in the middle of the most thickest fighting, when you could have sent anybody really to do this. There's no like significance attached to Hector. He's not doing the sacrifice. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. And the part that I liked the most was when he comes into the city, because there's a great part in the regular Iliad where he enters the doors and they ask him about their families, and he just says, pray to the gods. And then there's one little moment of commentary, like, there was suffering in store for all of them, or whatever. Like, they saying that Hector knew that so many of these loved ones they're asking about are dead, but he doesn't want to say it to them. And so I added this whole kind of like war flashback thing where, like, as their names are being said, he's seeing them like being killed or whatever, which I thought was kind of a nice moment. It's not really Homeric, like it's too cinematic, I guess, but I thought it worked pretty well. Again, we're writing our own thing. Like, this is the concept of oral storytelling, is that you are simultaneously truthfully telling the Iliad, but you are also telling a living version of it. So it's whatever you're making it. And Homer also was not necessarily telling the story that he knew from before that. He was making up stuff and adding like anachronisms from his own time, because there's like proven that there's a lot of like types of warfare in the Iliad that would not have occurred in the Bronze Age when he's describing the story taking place, but would have been contemporary to his time, like pre-hoplite, Iron Age warfare, which would be when Homer lived. So it's the equivalent of if I inserted like, guys with, M16s or something into the Iliad. That's what Homer did at the time, in the middle of Bronze Age fighting, like some, squad of, like in Death Stranding, like Mads Mikkelsen would just show up with like an M16 in the middle of a World War II setting. That's what the Iliad actually already is. We just don't realize it because it's so far removed from us. Both time periods are so far removed, we don't realize it. It's the same as how Don Quixote by Cervantes, you know, the time difference between what Don Quixote thinks it is and where he actually lives is supposed to be seen as this like huge time gap that he's like living in the past. But we're so removed from it that a lot of people just take it to be like that there's not really that much difference, and it's not really understood the irony of what's going on in the story. So all of that to say that like adding some like Hollywood more cinematic moments is not necessarily unfaithful to the spirit of the story. And that's also why I have so much love for Christopher Logue's story War Music, where he like retells the Iliad, and it's still set in the Bronze Age, but like Hector just is like 8 feet tall and he's like blue or something, and there's like some of the Homeric similes just make reference to like Vietnam or like press conferences, and it's like all over the place in terms of like what the narrator is using to describe the story, but the action is still in Bronze Age warfare, which is, again, that's exactly what Homer already did, but it just makes it clear to you, the viewer, what it was like for somebody hearing Homer doing it, because it was multiple time periods all wrapped into this one thing. So yeah, it would be nice to add some more stuff like that, I guess, as we go, to kind of continue making it our own, because that's the only way you can really, I guess, tell the story in an interesting way, I think, is to make it our own and to find the parts that speak to me. You know, there's a lot of parts that I particularly like, but to not just like try to remember what I already know of those parts, but rather to like bring forth the essence of that part, not necessarily just telling, maybe even changing it, but in order to better communicate what I like about it, which I think I did a decent job of at that part. So yeah, let's keep going with it and see where it goes. Again, this is all in service of the game project I'm working on, where I'm making a turn-based RPG based on the Trojan War. And right now, the version I'm working on, if you've seen the one I'm doing, it's all combat because I'm trying to like tune the main mechanic of the game. But the actual game would have, it would kind of be like like an RPG. Like you would meet like NPCs and stuff, and there would be like all these side missions and things, and there would be a lot of written content, is what I mean to say. So I want to kind of like get the essence of how Homer would speak without just like, because I have like thousands of notes from the Iliad and quotes and stuff that I've written down from different translations, but I don't want to just make a big hodgepodge of that. You know, that's just pulling stale content that somebody already did. Even if I reworded it, you know, I want to come up with new Homeric similes and new ways to describe things that aren't in translations we've already seen. So that's what we're doing here, is trying to like exercise that skill so that I can then be able to do that when the time comes. And let's see, just keep doing it and see how it goes.